This is my incredibly awesome, amazing, stellar tic-tac-toe game. I'm lying. It's just tic-tac-toe, and that's great, because the place to start learning Unity is with simple 2D games. In this tutorial, I am going to walk you through the steps of making this game, and some of the tools that are needed to make any game in Unity. This is foundational stuff, and it's an approachable way. All of my code and assets are available linked in the description. And without further ado, maybe I should play some. And then I'll dive into the tutorial. I guess I'm gonna win if I'm playing tic-tac-toe by myself, although I'm not. Whoop, I won. But you get the point. Awesome. Let's get started. Tic-tac, well, I guess I'll capitalize it. Tic-tac game. Perfect. All right, and I have it 2D, and let's create this. And there it is. I'm gonna go ahead and expand this out. Actually, let's go ahead and I'm gonna right click and do create folder. All of these sprites I'm about to use, all of these images I'm about to use are public domain or in the Creative Commons. I will post links to all the material, all the code below, but these are free to use. I got them all from Wikimedia Commons. But again, links in the description below. And there they are. I guess I can close that. All right, so we got sprites, scene. I'm just gonna say main scene. I just hit F2 to rename that. All right, now let's see. We need to start by right clicking, and we're gonna do the first step of this is a UI object, which is a canvas for our game to appear on. And it pops up here, and the event system does as well. I'm going to go to game and just make sure I have this on 16:9 is what we're going to do. And instead of having a constant pixel size, I'm going to say scale with screen. All right, there's some of those steps out of the way. Let's go ahead and I'm headed to my sprites folder. I'm going to make or place my game board. Boom. And I'm going to right click and reset the transform. Great habit to get into early. And scale, I'm thinking more of twice as large. Nope, way too big. I just wanted to fill most of the screen. That's looking great. 1.5 times the size is great. All right, so we have that set up. I'm gonna go ahead and rename this to, I guess game board, but let's not do a space. There we are. All right, game board. And then I now need to add a piece, token. I'm going to choose X, okay? And there it is in the middle. So I'm going to go ahead, I guess I can rename it right here, and rename this token. Yep, token. And with it renamed token, I also am going to increase the size of this, maybe the same, 1.5, possibly. That looks good. That's a good scale. So, all right, we want this to be a prefab. And a prefab means it's an object that we can use many times. We can have many clones of it, and we only have to edit the prefab to change all of them. So I'm going to head back to my assets folder, and I'm going to grab this token and drop. And now it is a prefab. And just so I know, I'm going to say open prefab. I'm even going to rename this prefab, token prefab, just so I don't get them mixed up. The prefab match name. Oh, yeah, rename it. That's fine. It's just renaming it here. All right, so great. Now, what do we need with our prefab? Well, we're going to actually start getting into the code here. We want the ability for, the person to play the game. So with our prefab, boop, boop, we want to open this up, and we're going to add component and player turn, how about? Or how about turn script? Turn script. Okay, something like this, and new script, and create and add. So I've added this to the prefab. It pops up here. This is a simple game, so I'm not going to actually add folders for the prefab and the script. let's double click. All right, and what do we need in our turn script here? Well, what we're going to need is a ability to change we need multiple images assigned to our game piece, because if the player clicks and it is O's turn, we need an O. But if the player clicks and it is X's turn, we need it to be an X suddenly. So I'm going to do a public sprite, and I'm just going to say images, right? It's the sprite images, boom. And this being public, what that means when I hit save here, let me go ahead and try to do a split screen. See if it's too small. When I hit save here, and if I go back over to my token, which is a version of the prefab, I should have images, what I created right here, pop up here. And how many do I want? I want 2. And what are they going to be? Oh, look, they're sprites. So I can click. I'm going to have an X image, select that one, and an O image, hit enter, and now I have my 2 images set to go. Okay? So, what else should I do? Well, I need to be able to access the sprite, so I can change the sprite of this object. And to do that, it's called, what controls the sprite of an object is called the sprite renderer. So I'm going to do sprite renderer with a lowercase s, okay? But we can't define this. We can declare this, but we can't define it right away. To define it, we need to wait for the program to start up. And to make sure that occurs, I'm going to use private void awake, and this is a default or a pre-made method of Unity's engine. So now, once the game's up, once it's awake, sprite renderer is going to be equal to, I'm going to get the component. What component? Well, I'm going to get the sprite renderer. And what am I getting the sprite renderer of? Right now, I'd be getting the sprite renderer of whatever this is attached to. So whatever X we're talking about, whatever token we're talking about, I'm grabbing the thing that outputs the sprite for it, and I'm assigning it to this sprite renderer thing. I could just call this my sprite, right? Variables don't matter. You can name them what you want. It's a bit more clear if you have it be the same, except it's lowercase, because otherwise it wouldn't work. All right, so now what do I want? Well, I want to be able to change it from an X to an O. So private void on mouse down, right? So when they click, and this is another included method within Unity itself. When they click, what do I want? I want sprite renderer.sprite to be equal to what? Well, we have this images array, and what index do I want? 0 element, but it already is red. I start with that. So let's try setting this to 1. And let's see if we have anything working. I'm going to make sure to save. I'm going to go over here and hit run. And I have mine super zoomed in. Let's back that out a bit. Not yet. What are we missing? And this is critical, and it's the thing I always forget to add. It is the collider. For the computer to be able to detect you clicking, you need to put a collider on this. I'm going to use the box collider, and it's just the area around where a hit detection or click can be, well, detected. I'm going to make sure to hit File, Save, and I'm going to hit Play again. Boom. And it won't change back yet, but we're getting there. All right. One step. So, what do we need? Well, we want to make sure that it can turn both ways. We also don't want this to appear the second the game starts. That doesn't make sense. We don't suddenly pick where the first move is. So let's take care of that right now. What we'll do to do that is private void start, another default method of Unity. And when the program starts, when our game starts, I'm going to say sprite render, notice the lowercase, because I'm using the one we made, is going to be equal to null. It's going to be nothing, right? So now it will load nothing unless we click on it. All right, this is looking good. Let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and add a controlling script that will make sure we are make sure that the turns are going in the right order. All right, so we'll need one more script for our game here. And this one I'm going to attach actually to the game board itself. So I'm headed back over here. We could though, here, let's test. So we have a token here. I'm going to start adding more. Let's test these prefabs, right? So I'm going to say this will be token 5. And then I'm going to make this token 1. And it's going to be going whoop, whoop, right there-ish. We'll say -3 and 3. Okay. And then this will be token 2. And okay. And then I'm going to select all of these. Right, 1, 2, 3. I'm holding shift, and I'm just going to duplicate, and then I'm going to drag them down. And we can go ahead and make all these because we can still edit all of them at once with a prefab. So this is going to be 3. This will be our 6th token. That will be our 7th token. That will be our 8th. And token 9. Perfect. All right, let's go ahead and see if they all will turn into O's. Boom. Oop, and what did we forget? I forgot to add colliders to all of those. I added a collider to the token, but not to the prefab. So, what's really nice about prefabs though is let me open it up, and I can add a component, and I can do a to collider. I'm gonna hit File, Save. Let's get out of our prefab, and let's try that again. Oh, and now what's going on is this size thing. We always need to edit the prefab. So token size 2, we need to have this stuff. I should have been putting it in the prefab right away. And now they'll all have both of these images. All right. There we are. Now we're only going to see the O right now because our code only allows the O. So let's go ahead then and, like I said, game board, add component. And what are we going to call this? I'm going to say game script. It's going to kind of control the overall game. Create and add. Okay. And maybe I will create a scripts folder because we now have 2 scripts. And it's going to be angry at me saying, where did your code go? There it is. All right. Game scripts. So what are we going to need in this? Well, we're going to be keeping track of turns, really, is what this is for. To do that, I can get rid of all of this. I'm going to need the I'm not going to be a sprite. I'm trying to think here. I'm going to need a sprite index value of -1. Okay, and I'll show you why I'm starting this at -1. I'm going to have a public int function player turn. And what's going inside of this will be our sprite index integer we just declared up there. I'm going to increment. I'm going to add 1 to, right? That means sprite index equals sprite index plus 1. That's what the plus plus means. And then I'm just going to return sprite index over 2. And the reason I'm using a modulus operator, what that does, this is division, but the only thing it returns is the remainder. So if you do 3 modulus divided by 2, you would just get a 1 back. It just gives you back the remainder. And the reason for that, the reason I'm using 2 here, is that's going to determine the turn. So this is an outside script that each piece will use, and it will say, hey, whose turn is it? If the number here, if the sprite index is even, right, say it's 7, if it's 8, right, say it's 8, there's been 8 turns. Well, 8 divided by 2 has no remainder, so 0. Well, if the return is 0, then if the remainder is 0, what index is 0? It would be the x. But if it is 7 divided by 2, the remainder would be 1. What index, what image is at 1? That's the O. And that's how we're going to keep track of turns, this simple function here. So now let's make sure this works within our turn script. All right. So we got this, and now we need a game object. And we called it game script. Okay. And then I'm going to go down here. Oh, this is the game board. Got it. Let's call it game board. And then I'm going to go down here in our awake, because we don't want it to be defined until, well, the program's up and going, and say game board is going to be equal to game object dot find. What are we finding here? Well, we're finding the game board. Okay. Now, with that out of the way, what we can do is we can use it to do the changing. So I want a variable here. We're just going to do int index. And what is that index going to be equal to? This index will be the index of the sprite that we used, right, for that turn. So it's going to be equal to the game board.get component. And then what component do I want? Well, I want the game script. And make sure you have parentheses here. And then dot, what function am I running? Okay, so what function do we need to run from game script? I want to run my player turn function. So dot player turn parentheses. And let me just, I'm gonna go here and hit enter so you can see all of it. There we go. All right, so now this index is going to be equal to whatever my player turn function returns. And remember, what it's returning is the sprite index divided by 2, the remainder of that, the modulus. All right, so now with this set, I haven't actually used it yet. So now I'm going to get rid of my 1 here and do index. Let me hit save. Let's give this a shot. And now it should vary each time. The one other thing, though, we're going to want to do, notice I can change, right? I could cheat theoretically if the person I'm playing, I make look the other way and grab the mouse. We don't want that. So to stop the cheating from happening, what we can do now is here I'm going to add another variable, bool, a boolean value, unplayed, and a boolean is just true or false. True, right? So right now this piece has not been played. And now I'm going to do an if unplayed. So if unplayed, if this piece has not been played, then I will allow the user or that spot to change. Okay? And let's just put that back so you have seen it now. All right. And then once it has been changed, we don't want it to be changed again. That would be cheating. Once you've taken your turn, you're done. So, false. We set unplayed to false, and now that spot would not, or that token would not be able to be changed again. So let me go ahead and hit play now. boom, 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 and I can't change it. We have a simple, fun tic-tac-toe game. One last thing I'm gonna change because I like to. Main camera, the color is right here. If you want to mess with that, I'm not. Ooh, actually might have a maybe something like this. Oh, might be too blue for the O's. Maybe something like this. I am liking that. Ta-da! Tic-tac-toe. If you add on to this, you should make something really awesome and tell me about it below. There's a lot you can do with this, but this gets you started. This gets you a complete game and allows you to walk yourself through some of the steps that are needed and some of the functions and methods and variables and terminology that Unity uses. If you're still watching this, make sure to hit like, make sure to hit subscribe. It gives me warm fuzzies, makes the world better, and all of that. But